Hello and welcome to Trends with LJE, where we dive deep into the critical issues shaping the national conversation. I am your host, Maimuna Ahoy-Zazubir, and as always, the spotlight is on politics, justice, governance, and the voice demanding change. Joining me on the panel today are three key minds who will help us dissect these stories. Developmental strategist Shedrack Oka, academic and media expert Dr. Uchera Ikedichukwu Chris, and joining us from the LJE Asaba office, President of LJE, Barrister Samuel Meme. Welcome to you all. Barrister, how are you over there?
I'm very fine. Thank you very much. Muna, thank you to my colleagues out there. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Let's get straight into the first trending issue. The presidency is once again on the defensive, following strong criticism from a coalition of 17 prominent civil society leaders and Democrats, including Richard Akinola, Dr. Sam Amadi, and Professor Adele Jinodu. The group is warning of a dangerous slide towards authoritarianism and a de facto one-party state under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. According to them, political pluralism is being eroded, not through persuasion or performance, but through blackmail, EFCC threats, and coercive tactics aimed at opposition politicians. Many defections to the APC, they say, are politically engineered under duress. And in a related development, the PDP is preparing sanctions and legal action against its own members who are openly supporting Tinubu's 2027 re-election bid, some of whom have already defected to the ruling APC. Dr. Chris, I'll start with you. Do you see anything credible coming from these coalition that have come together to say that we are heading towards a one-party state? We talked about this briefly in the last episode. What are your thoughts on this?
You see, let me start by saying that kudos to the civil society, and that is what is expected of them to do, to stand in the gap and watch the government of the day, what they are doing. For them to have come out to make these speculations, there is empirical facts to that. They didn't just come to say it because they want to say it. You can see the level at which people are leaving other political parties, oppositions to APC.
Right.
You can see the major political parties, the problems and the problems they have among their leadership. You can see the PDP today have lots of problems that they cannot handle. You can see Labour Party in shambles as well, and other political parties. So for the civil society organizations to come out and say that we are headed to a one-party system, they have empirical facts to substantiate what they are saying by what I've just said now. So, but I pray it doesn't work that way, and I pray that the plan of the ruling party and the government in power does not work the way they have speculated. So for them to have come out to say it, every Nigerian is seeing that we only have one party today, and that's APC that's in power. PDP is not doing their work as opposition. The Labour Party is not doing their work as opposition. And other parties, there is no opposition in the country. So by that reason, what the civil society organizations and bodies are saying, it is truth. But let's see what pans out before the 2027 election.
Absolutely. Shedrack, what does this growing silence from opposition? You heard Dr. Chris talk about how the other opposition parties are basically not pulling their weight, as it were. What does their growing silence mean for Nigeria's democracy going forward?
Well, it's a very dangerous trend. Again, I will speak as a citizen of Nigeria. I have seen politicians are one and all the same, 99% the same. What you see is politicians, whether as PDP or APC or Labour Party, unite against the people. For me, I wouldn't blame President Tinubu for that, whether they want to swallow every other political party. Like Ganduje said, they didn't put gun on their head.
Absolutely.
They didn't coerce them. There is a man, a politician who came out to say he had been a governor for 8 years and had campaigned as a vice presidential candidate of a party and not a presidential candidate. He consistently said, if you pin any corruption case against me, I will throw in the towel and not contest. Yet they found nothing against. He's a human being like every other person. I want to say it is because of the baggage that these guys are carrying that is making them to run and look for cover in the APC. But for me, it is very clear. From 1999, the history showed that it is the people that always determine the kind of change that we want, not politicians. I can see for Delta, Rivers, and Bayelsa that were opposition against the APC presidency. It was all their victory was always guaranteed by the people standing strong by them. In 2003, when PDP through Obasanjo collated 5 governors from the AD, swallowed them up to the PDP in the subsequent election. Only Lagos State. Lagos Tinubu succeeded because the people stood very strong. I campaigned in that election. I was there as a young undergraduate. We stood our ground that no, they must not take AP with all the armor cars, and AD won in 2003, which is Tinubu ACN now, and then the APC. So I want to say, for me, I don't see anything different from what is happening. In 2027, one thing is very sure. Once the people realize their power, the politicians are afraid. It doesn't matter whether a Delta State governor or the rest of them in the Niger Delta go to the APC. It will always be the people against politicians. There are a lot of APC governors that will lose election. There are PDP governors that will lose election. Labour Party National Assembly members, I don't know why they are there. Some of them very privileged, they didn't campaign, and we put them there because of the obedient movement and the change. And today they are whining and dining with the president against policy, anti-people policy. All of them will lose their seat. So what we are waiting for is the people to organize themselves, just like the civil society have voiced out. We will stand up for our right against politicians, whether the PDP or APC.
Absolutely.
Once we get a common platform to ventilate our anger against these people, we'll throw them out through the ballot.
Absolutely. Barrister, are there any, legal remedy or check for these kinds of systemic pressure through institutions like the EFCC, because that was one of the things that were mentioned by this coalition of civil societies? How do we separate, cross-party appeal from coercion? Because a lot of this is speculative. We don't have tangible proof as to the movement of politicians from party to party. I would like to hear your thoughts on this, specifically based on my questions.
Well, you the issue of coercion, possible coercion. They said a clear conscience fears no accusation. For someone, of course, this is not the first time people are moving from one political party to another. I'm actually against this movement of people from one political party. We believe in political ideology. And I listened to the former governor of Delta State, my former governor, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, when he said that, and it was asked on Arise News, and he said that Nigeria has not gotten to the level where the issue of a political ideology will have to bear. But the question you ask is, if someone of that level is saying that Nigeria has not gotten to the level of having a political party ideology, so you now begin to ask, so who then is to introduce political ideology into our political system? For someone who has risen from a local government chairman, then the commissioner, then the secretary to the state government, then the senator, then the vice presidential candidate of his political party. And some people said because he was arrested by the EFCC, or he was invited by the EFCC, so therefore he wants to. And for me, there is nothing like coercion. If you ask me, yeah, there is nothing like coercion. There is nothing like coercion. It is about selfish interest. It's about greed. And if you listen to some of their reasons, they are saying that they want to have access to national treasury. That is to tell you how their mind is working. So if somebody said, I want to have access to national treasury, then what about the state treasury you are already in possession with? What are you doing with the state treasury?
Very true.
Because yes, you talk about, now we are talking, people are blaming Tinubu. But I can tell you that Tinubu really have no hand in this, because from the time of, from the 2000 and 1999, when we returned back to this democracy from the time of former President Obasanjo, Olusegun Obasanjo, we knew how when EFCC was introduced and how EFCC was even used to withhold political opponents. It has always been so, even though it is not the right thing to do. But then this trajectory has continued over the years. Even in the last administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan, there were also issues that the EFC would normally arrest political opponents. But there are some politicians who have remained in their political party. For any politician who could not withstand the heat to be, you think as a politician or as a governor, the only way you can succeed is to be in the ruling political party. Nigerians must begin to understand and realize that these guys do not really serve their interests. And here in Delta State, you find these people moving, but apart from the political appointees, they are politicians, and we must begin to look out for leadership rather than politicians. We have enough politicians in this country. Then you talk about legal remedy. Of course, every elected persons were elected on the platform of a political party. But essentially, this issue can as well more be addressed through from the parliamentary aspect. If you are a parliamentarian and you cross carpet from one political party to the other without any justifiable reason for the purpose of division of a political party, I do not want to agree that it is a great infraction in PDP that can warrant people who are elected to serve in the various state houses of assembly to move from that political party and still continue to occupy the position which they occupy. And I listened to the national chairman of the party. A lot of people are called, I'm not a member of PDP. That is their business. I do not even fashion their leadership. But however, we must call a spade a spade. If you are elected under a platform of a political party and you cannot stand firm for that political party, you do not have the capacity to work things around. If we all move into a one-party state, would that serve us right? Definitely no. So for those who are moving, they are serving their personal interest, not the interest of the people. But I can tell you that there are people who are still in the PDP who may likely contest the governorship election in PDP in those states where they are living to another political party, that they are still very strong and firm. And this is also a wake-up call to other political parties who may want to, spring up and form some kind of coalition. But again, when it comes to coalition, I'm not so very much comfortable with coalition if it's a coalition without ideology. This is how APC form coalition to come into power. So what they're looking at for is how they can grab power, be at the center, and siphon the collective wealth of Nigeria.
So, thank you so much, Barrister. I almost got you off there. Now, moving on to another story. President Tinubu's inauguration of a National Population Census Committee has been met with strong opposition from groups in the North and the East. The Waneze Ndigbo Youth Council and the Northern Elders Forum have both rejected the appointments, calling them lopsided and accusing the administration of pursuing a sectional agenda. They say this violates the fair trial character principle and risks repeating the mistakes of previous censuses that were seen as biased. They are now calling for a review of the committee to reflect a more balanced membership. Shadrach, I'm going to come to you. This talk about a census committee, bearing in mind that we haven't had a census since about 2016. It's about 2 decades since we've had any census in Nigeria. Why is this such a sensitive issue? The last time that we had a census, it's a long time ago, but still there was a lot of controversy regarding the numbers that were eventually highlighted as the number of people living in Nigeria, citizens and foreigners alike. Why is this such a sensitive issue in Nigeria? And how much of this outcry by these groups from both northern and eastern regions, is it really about representation? Or is this just raw political power at play once again?
Well, starting from where you ended, I would say it's both. But census is very important to any country or to any people. because it takes statistics of both population and some other important factors of the society. Absolutely. It's also healthy for planning, purposeful planning, and help to direct policies and the programs of government. I think one of the reasons why we're not really doing well when it comes to development is lack of data, correct data and figure, accurate data. It will not help you to project very well. And of course, like you noted, for close to 2 decades now, we've not had, even the last one we had, I pegged around 2006, about 140 million. Close to 20 years, we've not had speculating 250, 230, 220 million people. Absolutely. And all of these have been met with a lot of suspicion between the North and the South divide. Apologies. The last time we talked about lopsidedness by the Tinubu administration and the presidency coming out to apologize to the people that they are going to correct it. Yeah. I remember vividly on this platform, I said that the presidency is not a kindergarten organization. It is an institution, a very serious institution. So people don't just churn out policies or program or statement and come back to apologize and say, I told us that it is intentional. And I did say on that program, just wait for another set of appointment. You will still come back to this. And less than 7 days, then inaugurated the census committee came up. Yeah. What did we see? 5 southwest, 1 northwest, 1 northeast, and 1 south-south. So you can look at that. We have 6 from the south and only 2 from the north. And I can tell you, nobody from the east. So that portends a lot of suspicion already before you even kickstart a sensitive and important exercise such as census. And the committee that is going to midwife such an exercise already, shrouded in that kind of lopsidedness. Yeah. So I want to say that I don't know who is advising Mr. President. You don't do that. Absolutely. This is bigotry. You don't do that. This is ethnocentric. You don't do that in a country where you are elected. People should know this is leadership. We are not talking of campaign. Absolutely. Once you are elected in the public office like the president, you are a president for all. You're not a president, a tribal or an ethnic president. You are supposed to dispense governance to everybody and to be seen to be fair in what you are doing. So I want to call on Mr. President to reconsider, just like they said they were going to apologize the other time, say they will reconsider. We should reject it. It is high time the people should stamp their feet to know that the crown sits on the head of the king. He is not bigger than the throne. So you are elected to serve the people. The people will dictate and you must obey. We reject such composition of a census committee. It is suspicious and it will throw every exercise into conflagration. We don't want that and we reject it.
Absolutely. Dr. Chris, I'd like to hear your thoughts. What risk this poses to national unity at a time when our national unity is basically hanging on a cliff? And then if you throw this more into the range of things where there is an obvious lopsidedness to the committee that is supposed to bring, the population and the stats together to say this is the accurate number of people that we have here, and you have already removed completely one person or a group of persons from one specific region. I would like to hear your thoughts on this.
You see, this is a total portrayal of lack of consciousness from the side of our leaders. A country that is at risk of security, political turmoil, and every other thing in the country, a leader is still, let me use in our local parlance, adding insult to an injury. What does it mean? It shows that he doesn't know the situation of the people is guiding or leading.
Governing, yeah.
You don't know what is at stake. Forming such a sensitive committee, and you are bringing almost 80% of the committee members from one side of the country, one region of the country. Does it show inclusiveness? Does it show that you are carrying every person along? No, it shows that as a leader, he doesn't know how volatile Nigeria as a nation is now. Now you continue adding more problems to problems. What's the name? This census is a very serious and sensitive issue in governance. It is used for policy formulation.
Right.
It is used for economic planning or state creation and every other thing. This is where you leverage on and get data upon which you use to do all these things. And now you are bringing one side of the nation to form a policy for the whole nation. In fact, the refusal or the opposition from the, imagine Southeast as a region, no person was nominated from
Yeah,
that place.
absolutely.
And you say you are a leader. Where is the leadership there? Where is the leadership there? You now formulated it, and you feel every other person will clap for you that you are leading right. You know, for me, this is a summary that we don't have a leader that knows the mind of the people, that cares for what the people need. So for me, the agitation and the opposition from the east and from the north, they are rightly doing what they're supposed to do. And I keep praying that God should touch him to know that what he's doing, he's not doing right, and he should counsel and do all-inclusive committee.
Yeah, the committee. Absolutely. Well, we'll take a short break now. But when we return, we discuss a major legal verdict that has stirred public emotion and reawakened the gender-based violence conversation. Don't go anywhere.
Ready for change? Join LJE Nigeria, an innovative organization driven by change, growth, and economic advancement. For membership details and registration, visit our website ljenigeria.org or follow us on all social media platforms.
Welcome back to Trends with LJE. We now turn to a story that's dominated headlines and conversations across the country. Justice has finally taken its course in the tragic case of the late gospel singer Osinachi Nwachukwu. Her husband, Peter Nwachukwu, has been sentenced to death by hanging for culpable homicide and several other charges, including child cruelty and spousal battery. Social media has been divided. Many welcome the verdict, seeing it as a strong stand against domestic violence, and others worry about the consequences for the children, who will now lose both parents. Meanwhile, incidents of femicide and domestic abuse continue. A soldier was recently sentenced to death for killing his girlfriend, and the political aide in Delta State who met her sad demise last week, allegedly at the hands of her husband. Barrister, I'll come straight to you. So regarding this issue, does this verdict mark a turning point in the fight against domestic violence? I think this is a landmark judgment regarding domestic violence. And I don't think we've ever had this where somebody was sentenced to death for the murder of their own spouse. Is this a turning point in the fight against domestic violence? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, this judgment is actually coming with mixed feeling because just like you mentioned in your opening remark on this subject matter, that of course, they also have children. So how would it feel having your your mother killed by your father, and the courts also had also made pronouncements that I'm now referring on the area of the children. And of course, this is because these persons that are involved appears to be a high profile person. And I think that was last week, I got a call about similar incident that happened in Lagos, where someone was also murdered by her own husband in Lagos. This particular case is not in the public domain, and they were seeking for possible counsel and where to go. Now, the issue is we must continue to educate Nigerians, particularly women, who find themselves in abusive relationship or marriage, that the best way to go is to step aside for your own interest and the interest of your loved ones. This is a welcome development, and it serves rights in the interest of justice. And it is, of course, it also serves as a deterrent to violent men out there who believe that the only way they can express themselves is to pounce on their spouse. Okay, so it's quite very pathetic because looking at this wave of violence, domestic violence, women must be encouraged Okay, I don't know other way. We used to have national orientation agencies in this country, but at the moment we don't even know what they are doing because some people are already in depressive marriage. They don't know who to run to. So Nigerians must begin to realize that if you find yourself in this kind of situation, the best thing to do is to report to the authority, or better still, step aside. It is better to walk away from marriage than to walk into debt.
Absolutely. Dr. Chris, beyond legal outcomes, what policy or cultural shifts can we envisage that this landmark judgment can bring? I also want to know your thoughts on the discourse around the harshness of this judgment. Couldn't it be argued that the children are better off? Because among the counts and judgments that were raised against the man was that he was also abusive to his own children. So, I mean, if the court finds him guilty on that count alongside murder, I don't know, do we not think that the children are better off without him?
You see, just like our LJE president just said, the judgment came with mixed feelings. And this time we have to put ourselves in the shoe, of the children and also of the man in question. Now, for the man, my own interest there is to know if tomorrow there is a shift or a pardon, or in a pardon in the judgment given to him, will he be of a new person? Then coming to the children, they know what their father have been doing to them before the demise or the death of their mother. So will that man change and fail not or stop from doing what he has been doing on the children? It's a two-way issue. But I have to commend the courage of the judge. Even if tomorrow there was a shift or a kind of pardon on that man, every person in this country, if you're a father, you're a parent, you must have had this judgment. And it is a deterrent, it's a lesson to every father, to every parent that having domestic violence against your spouse or against your children, is a very bad issue. So for me, culturally, it is something that we shouldn't engage in. It's bad. We should find ourselves in domestic violence, and every person should learn from this. Every person, if you're a parent, don't engage in it. It is bad. Let us have it imbibed in our spirit and culture that this should not happen in our society.
Right.
And that when it happens, remember Osinachi's case. What happens to the husband? If the man in question is pardoned, will you be as lucky as him to be pardoned?
Right.
Yours might be different.
Absolutely.
So every one of us, parents, be you a man or a woman in the family, know it today that when you commit it, there is law in the land that will one day find the person out.
Absolutely. Shadrach, speaking about and referencing what Barrister said about the fact that the only reason this is having, this kind of landmark judgment is because the victim was a high-profile individual, and that there are so many other cases of, domestic violence that have led to the death of a partner, intimate partner violence that has happened where the court did not give maximum judgments like this or as swift as this, because this happened, I think, in 2023. So I would like to hear your thoughts in regard to how this applies to the non-celebrity sufferers of domestic violence, and if this would even, spread to them in any shape or form.
First of all, two perspectives in which I want to make my comment. The first is the president quoted National Orientation Agency as one of the instruments that will help to sensitize the people to even speak up and report cases of abuses in marriages.
Right.
That will really help. This, like he rightly put, because it's a high-profile case. So I want to speak on that. Our religious body, the churches and the mosques, must preach against domestic violence and also uphold the issue of walking out from abusive marriages as against enduring because of stigma. It doesn't help. And let me speak in the voice to round up in the speak from the perspective of the children. For me, the judgment brought relief on the children who have to put up with the enduring torture or putting up with a father who killed their mother. But this will put a relief in their heart that the law have taken its course. So for me, I think it's very okay. It serves right, but also want to challenge civil society to help please investigative journalism to help and report cases of abuse in marriage, because our culture and our religious background doesn't really help women to speak up. And when they speak up, they should do. Finally, on the judgment, I want to say our politicians have killed more people than what we have just experienced. So courts, just the way they expedite actions and justice in this case. How about people who stole 1 trillion and 70 billion, who took away drugs from our hospitals, and women have died in labor because the politicians stole, and yet there's no conviction or landmark judgment like this. They should also do the same. It is part and parcel of killing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Justice reform is really much needed. On to our final story. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is proposing major reforms ahead of the 2027 general elections. Top among them include replacing the PVCs with downloadable voter cards, taking away the president's power to appoint resident electoral commissioners, and shifting appointment powers to INEC itself. However, as bold as this sounds, stakeholders have raised alarm. There are claims that the political elite are already positioning to hijack INEC, with concerns that the National Assembly might simply rubber stamp biased nominees. Shadrach, I'd like to hear from you. We've talked about this off mic. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this whole thing. We are just 2 years away from what will be, a very hotly contested election is looking like. And we are talking about reforms. We just reformed our electoral system. And I thought that we had what was a workable process in the last election. Do we really need these reforms? Thoughts?
Well, we need a lot of reforms in many other areas of our life, but this specific one is needless. There is nothing wrong with the last reforms, that electoral reforms that was achieved, bringing in the beavers
Yes.
and IRFs. There's nothing wrong. The only thing that is wrong and criminal is INEC reneging on the powers we have given unto them, expending taxpayers' money up to 2 trillion to carry out this exercise and turning back against their own word 24 hours after they have said elections will count, voting is going to count in real time. And they renege on that.
Right.
That is what is wrong.
Right.
What was wrong is the courts haven't seen the Electoral Act in black and white, turning against it and passing judgment against and making lame excuses. This is unacceptable. We cannot afford. And the issue where there are no drugs in our hospitals, there are no roofs on the top of our schools, and you want to expend another money, there is nothing wrong with the PVC as it is now, or the beavers machine. Let them keep at that. What is wrong is INEC should be called culpable of their inactions or defending what we have given unto them, demanding the Electoral Act. So there is nothing wrong with this. They should forget about the downloadable voters card. Let us make do with what we have.
Absolutely.
Let's hold INEC accountable.
Absolutely.
And stop INEC from being an appendage of a political party.
Barrister, if you can hear me, I would like to hear your thoughts on how this proposal can even stand constitutional scrutiny. Are there legal hurdles that INEC may face with proposing these reforms?
Well, I do not believe in the leadership of this current INEC. And my reason is very clear and simple. This current INEC had made reforms or proposed reforms that appears to be okay in the minds of an ordinary Nigerian. But in the long run, they would turn the reform on the other way around to favor whoever they want to favor.
Right.
Don't forget the last election in 2023, they brought up about a reform that would enable transmission of election from the polling units through their platform, the IRF. What happened? when they started the election on that fateful day, they found out that certain persons were, you know, winning the election. All of a sudden, they altered their reform. They changed the goalpost during the game. That is the INEC you know. That is the INEC that we still have today in Nigeria. So whatever reform they are trying to bring on, they are trying to calculate how possible they can use this reform to favor their paymaster. Who is their paymaster? I don't know, but Nigerians know. Now, what I'm trying to say here is, if you are coming up with an idea to say, okay, we want to make it easier for you to access your voter's card, so you can download this clip from wherever you are, then go on and vote. This indeed appears to be a good innovation. But in the long run, they may end up turning this reform to a different thing
Manipulating it,
entirely, just like the
absolutely.
process. In the last election, don't forget, we had the presidential election alongside with the National Assembly election. So what they did is that they truncated the transmission of results in the presidential angle, then whereas they went on with the National Assembly. What did the court rule? The court ruled that INEC had the right, the power to embark on reform, embark on their processes, their internal processes, and at the same time, they also have the right to change the game in the middle, to change the post game. So this is the reason why many Nigerians cannot trust INEC. But in the area of INEC appointing their residential electoral commissioner, this indeed is another area. I think I do not want to believe that INEC will be given that power, the independent power to do so. Just like the way you have it during the appointment of the judicial officers. The judges are naturally to be appointed through a process of the NJC. But what you notice here, what you find out in reality is that most of these judges are appointed directly either through the presidency or through the governor at the state level. So we have concern about the possibility of maintaining this process or these innovations into. But I think we can. INEC should now look more into the possibility of transmitting election through the reform they earlier introduced in
Right.
2023, and that is a
Absolutely.
reform we should now look into. And that is what we are calling on, even from the LJE, that INEC should uphold their reform by ensuring that the National Assembly should hold them responsible and possibly change this reform into law in so that every elections must be transmitted through the electronic means, and
Right.
everybody will have access to see the result in real time. This was the position of the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, at that time, when he said that the result will be transmitted and everyone will have access to the
Right.
platform and see this
Absolutely.
result. We have not been able to achieve that. You are not bringing in another one again. Just you want to make sure that Nigerians can no longer have free election because you are the chairman of INEC. This is unacceptable. The INEC chairman should look into the reform he introduced in 2023 and stick to that reform and ensure that this reform must take place. They should hold on to the reform introduced and ensure that results are transmitted, and we should be able to have access to this result in real time. They should improve on the
Absolutely.
technology and they should make
Absolutely.
it more transparent. What will it take INEC to conduct a transparent election? If the current president of Nigeria is eventually, if he's able to skate through and he
Yeah.
wins the election, good. He should be able to win this election in a more transparent manner.
Right.
Nobody should coerce Nigerians to lead them astray, or just because we have a crop of people in INEC. And Nigerians should begin to look into INEC, because INEC constitutes about 80% of the problem we are having in this country. The issue of leadership we are facing in this country is caused by INEC. The issue of insecurity is caused by INEC. The issue of lack of job is caused by INEC.
These are very
Because if you have a
controversial
transparent,
statements.
and yeah, I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth, because if you have an electoral umpire who manipulates results, who cannot be trusted, then you see people coming into power through the back doors and all of those things. What would you call it? At the end of the day, you will have people who are not supposed to be in position of power being there. They will buy their way into the system. No transparent method. They are talking about appointment. Let us maintain the current appointment system. Let us improve on the technology they have introduced in 2023. This is my position. Thank you.
Very true. It's clear that governance, justice, and democracy remain at the heart of Nigeria's transformation. But as today's discussions show, public trust must be earned through inclusion, fairness, and accountability. And this is where we close the curtain on this week's episode of Trends with LJE. A big thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for your insights. Very invaluable. Barrister, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Asaba. And thank you, our viewers, for joining us as always. I'm Maimuna Ahoiz Azubair, and this has been Trends with LJE. Keep questioning, stay informed, and see you next time.